middle of July, but this is my June reading wrap up. I have fiction novels across multiple genres to go over with you guys. Some major hits that I'm still grieving about and some flops as well. So stick around with me and let's chat books. Welcome back, friends. If you're brand new to my channel, my name is Arlene with Arlene and Company, and we're gonna chat about my June reading wrap up. There were some books that broke me. It was deep, which I'm still mourning about, okay? And there were some titles that following me over on my Instagram channel, which is also Arlene and Company. You may have caught a live with my book bestie and I, and that is Kelly from Beaches and Reads. So make sure you check that out. I'm gonna link that in the captions down below so you can check that out as well. We went over our mutual reads of titles. There are some titles that we've read actually the same thing. We were kind of just like vibing in the same feel. And we love to do these live chats, and we get into a lot of shenanigans and craziness. Libby is my friend. And if you don't know Libby, Libby's dad is Overdrive, and Overdrive created Libby. And Libby works with your library, and it is on whatever device you're working with. And you guys know, I absolutely hate ebooks. I know, if you guys are an ebook lover, I'm sorry. I just do not like ebooks. We talked about, Kelly and I talked about this. You know, I don't know how you just don't like nurse a migraine or an aneurysm or just reading on your screen all the time, but I don't know, that's just not me. But I really love audiobooks. So if I can get my hands on an audiobook, I can work while doing this. I can do all kinds of stuff. So let's get to it. Yeah, are you pumped? It's a book talk. All right, yes, I'm chatty and I get really invested in the books that I'm talking to you guys about. So go ahead, hit pause, go grab a drink, grab a snack. So the first book I want to talk about was called 100 Years of Lenny and Margot by Marianne Cronin or Cronin. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm sorry if I am, but that is 100 Years of Lenny and Margot. So the backstory of 100 Years of Lenny and Margot is that Lenny is a 17-year-old kid that is terminal. She's at the hospital. She's been there a while. She's by herself. Like, her father's not even there with her. I forgot what happened to her mother. This is like a while ago. And then there is an 83-year-old patient. I'm mentioning the age because it's important. An 83-year-old patient that has some kind of heart condition, and she doesn't think she's gonna make it either. Anyways, there was just a lot of like built up with, like, you know, obviously being terminal, but it wasn't like your sad type of, obviously, you know, ultimately it's sad, obviously, but it wasn't like one of those like it's gonna bring me way down type of read. There was a lot of humor and inspiring parts to it. So basically, between Lenny and Margot's ages, Lenny obviously realizes that she's not going to make it to 100, and or anywhere close to that, or I don't even remember how it came up. So what they decide is to combine their ages together and to make a picture of memories for 100 years until they get 100 and they both turn 100 together. It's out loud and it sounds so much more confusing. Anyways, when I picked up this read, and I don't even know where I saw it, and I always like to give credit where it's due, but I don't remember where I saw it, but it just grabbed my attention. I kind of had a feel of The Fault of Our Stars from John Green, and I love that book, and that was a YA read. It didn't live up to the same of The Fault of Our Stars. I really, and you know, if you did not like The Fault of Our Stars, I just don't know what to say to you. But that book to me was just like, oh, always okay. Yeah, I still quote it. And if you haven't read it, you're probably just like, what is wrong with you? But Lenny and Margot was still a very beautiful story. At first, when the book started, I was a little confused. Lenny speaking to the priest at the hospital. And it would spend a lot of time on that. And at first I was a little confused. I was like, what happened? Like, what did I just like, you know, what did I just pick up? And not that it was bad or anything like that, but I just didn't know if it was like going into like a faith-based direction. I only mention this is if you pick it up and you start reading it and you feel like tempted to abandon it because you think it's going into a different direction and that's not your faith, hang out to it, because it was more about developing that friendship and that relationship that you will see later on why it's so important and why they spend that much time. And Lenny had a lot of like, you know, theology type of questions, like why would God allow this or whatever. So I found that interesting, and she had like just like that edge and that comedy factor to, you know, like some tarot books can have. And anyways, I did give it 3.5 stars. I am a very hard critic with stars. I don't hand them out easily, but I still think it's a read I recommend. The only reason I probably rated it 3.5 stars is because I wanted it to be as good as The Fault in Our Stars. And for me, it didn't live up quite to that. So it was maybe an unfair thing. So maybe somebody else will pick it up and think differently. Here's my notes. This is my Conquest Journal for Harry Potter. And if you've never checked them out, this is where I'm reading from to make sure I don't forget anything. Because you think I remember all this stuff? Okay, no. So this one is like, this is deep. Yeah, get ready. All right, and you have little ears, just caution with little ears. This is actually a middle grade. But because of the topic, I felt that I wanted to pre-read this one first and see how this subject was presented. The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga. Please tell me that's how you pronounce it. I'm always afraid that I'm mispronouncing these authors' name. I'm like, you know, and I have one of those weird last names too, so I'm like, you know, I take special caution to that. Anyway, so The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga. I need a minute, you guys. Okay. This book takes school shooting and turns it into another direction that is rarely explored. And if you've read books in the same vein, let me know in the comments, because I would like, you know, if you have a book that I should read, let me know. So there was a school shooting, and the where the book starts is not in the actual event. And I was not sure what to expect or how vividly this situation was going to be portrayed or expressed. And because my children have that experience of being in school during active shooter drills and being in school where in their Hebrew school after the shooting in the synagogue, that is something that was very real. I just take special caution of how these subjects are presented, right? And don't feel any pressure of anybody telling you gotta do this way or anything like that. Do what fits your family. Anyway, so the way that they present this is 2 ex-best friends. And these 2 ex-best friends, I believe they were in 7th grade. And one was the sister of a victim in the shooting, and the other is the sister of the shooter. Yeah. And it's the aftermath. Like, what happens after a school shooting? And I know this is like a total trigger warning, you guys. Explores like what happens with the family unit and the friends in the victim side, and equally in the shooter side. And my goodness, if there is a book to read this one in a way that it just like would not let go. And The Shape of Thunder was presented in a way, when you read the synopsis, is like you read that one of them wants to find a wormhole to go back in time and fix what her brother had done. So you don't know if this is going to turn into a fantasy read or a realistic type of fantasy read or whatever, or if it's going to stay on a trend, and I'm not going to tell you because I'm not going to ruin it for you. You don't know, right? So that is like how the buildup is, you know, and they're not talking. She said she could never be friends with her because, you know, her brother killed her sister. And all that, it just deals with these very hard topics in such a way that is both raw and expressed in both ways, because a lot of times we spend a lot of time thinking about the victims, But, you know, it's human. We don't think about that much about the family of the guy that did it. The actual event of the day of the shooting is not explored in detail or anything like that. It's just more like that something bad happened, and there's some trigger moments where they have a shooting drill and active shooting drill, and those, you know, trigger memories and things like that. That explore those emotions and those feelings and the evolution of that and that friendship or ex-friendship and what happens with that. I wanted to know, like, what happened to this kid? Like, what happened? Like, it's only human for you to want to know, like, what happened in your life? Like, what switch flipped that you went from being this caring, loving brother to wanting to shoot up the school? So that element was not explored as much as I wish it would be. So that's the only reason where, like, again, I'm a hard critic with books. I got a 4.5 stars. The book that broke me, we're just gonna go from one book to another that breaks me, is, you know, 100 Years of Lenny and Margot didn't break me, but it was a story that made me, like, think a lot too. Was Salt to the Sea. Now, I did a full review over on Instagram of this. And as you know, I can be pretty dramatic. And this is Salt to the Sea, Ruta Sepetys. Okay, so there's these points where you read a certain book and you have never read anything from this author. You've heard about them, but you never really picked anything up. And just like any book nerd, we collect books, and then there's like 3/4 of them that we actually have not read on our shelves. But then there's a point that you read a book and then you go and stalk the author and find out everything they ever written, and you order it all. So I'm missing one here, but I am currently reading it on Libby, and I picked up other titles by her as well. So this is The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys, which I'm going to be reading. This is, I believe, her first one, which I think is a TV show or movie or something now. Between the Shades of Grey, a girl's voice breaks the silence of history. And these are historical fiction. She is, give me a minute, I'll explain. And this is the one that I'm currently reading, along with I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, which I'm reading I Must Betray You with Emily Cook's book club from Build Your Library. She's a creator of Build Your Library. It's not a Build Your Library book club, but she has her own little book club, which is awesome because she has the best taste in books. But Out of the Easy is another one that I am reading now, which I can't wait to tell you next month about it once I finish it. So yes, you know that I love this book when I picked everything up. So Ruta Sepetys wrote this book was based, inspired by true events in World War II. So this historical fiction, I know most people know the Titanic and the big tragedy of that, but that is not by far the most life loss in maritime history. Is actually the Gustav in 1945, where over 9,000 were lost. And this is a story about 4 teenagers, 4 different point of views that were refugees, and basically the 9,000 lives that were lost was almost all, you know, a good percentage of it was civilians, as the Soviet was advancing, and I think it was like 3 or 4 torpedoes hit the ship. The story starts way before the ship, the actual ship part, with the 4 points of views of these 4 teenagers, which doesn't even feel like teenagers. Like, it's crazy to like read back on it and read the synopsis and know that they were teenagers, because you're just like, it sounds like you're talking to, like, there's 4 adults' point of view. And you're dropped right in the smack of it as one of them is running and the other one, and then the other one running and hiding and trying to get to safety. And then each one introduces their point of view, and then the first chapter and the next ends with bang. And you're just like, how do we just start here at bang? So this is a book that not only inspires you to learn, you know, some very important history, and to dive deeper into areas that you may have not known about. It's just done with so much care. So the research that went into this, and with the collaboration that Rita Sepetys did, and the interviews with first-hand accounts from survivors, you can feel it in every page, that as if you are reading a nonfiction, and that's what you're around and takes root, and you're just not ready to let go. Now, I do not recommend reading this while you're thousands of thousands of feet up in the air, because I was in the plane when I finished reading this, and oh my goodness, I was just like frozen in my seat, and that is not a good place to read this. But this is a historical fiction novel that is just so anyways, this was a 5-star read for me. I have 2 5-star reads for this month, for June, and this was one of them, Salt of the Sea. Read my review over on Instagram too, where you will see some of the quotes and stuff from the book. I have to take a minute. This was a book that I read from the library, and then I went and bought it because it needs to stay on my shelf. It was one that I closed the last chapter, and I started again, and I needed to digest it all again. Just read it, and then let me know what you thought. But if you don't like it, I don't know. I can't talk to you. Next story, I don't have the physical copy of it, was Pachinko, and that was by Min-Jin Lee. Pachinko was one that I saw recommended, and was one of the last month's book club read, or previous month's book club read for Emily Cook's book club. Yes, I'm stalking her. That's just it. And she also has a channel where she shares all kinds of books, and besides her curricula, shares books all the time. So go ahead and check that out. In art schooling, it's actually R. I'll link it. Anyways, it's Pachinko. So this is a part of history that I just did not know that much about. And you're following a Korean family for multiple generations from beginning to end. Now, this book is massive. It's massive, but it doesn't, you don't mind that it's massive. It's not I have always been known as someone that's just I want to move on. If the book is too big, I just feel very impatient. I don't know if my ADD kicking in or something. I just get impatient. I just let's get is written. I need a minute. The way that it takes hold, do know there's some mature content in it, some sex scenes, some things that women had to do back then to just get a meal, selling their bodies, all kinds of stuff. There's just a lot of going on, but you're following this family for multiple generations, and you just it's not just family drama type of thing. It's just more, and it's hard without giving away. I foresee being a classic, right? And that we will talk about for years to come. And it's not a new release by any means. This was my other 5-star read. It ended. There was actually a section way before it ended, 3/4 of the way in, where I was just I listened to a part, because I was doing audio and physical book. Yeah, I'm weird like that. And I just put it down, and I was I couldn't pick it back up for another 30 minutes. I needed a moment to grieve. And that was just super, when a book grabs you that tightly and doesn't let go, that's worth it, my friends. All right, so Pachinko 5-star read. Definitely pick it up if you haven't. It's definitely worth the however many pages it is. Now the next book, Kelly and I had a riot talking about this, because both her and I have avoided reading this book for ages, for as long as it's been out, and everybody's been raving about it, and it has been hyped to no end. Everyone says you have to read it. It's the greatest, it's awesome. And the movie is being released this week. Okay. So where am I talking about? Where the Crawdad Sings by Dahlia Owens. I've avoided this book for as long as I can remember. I just could not. I did not see the appeal. I read the synopsis and I thought it was the most boring thing I have ever heard in my life. And I was falling asleep as I was reading the synopsis. I'm gonna be honest, like that's how I felt about it. Finally, I saw that Kelly crossed over the picket line and she went and started reading it. I was like, what? All right, fine, I'll read it too. It took me a minute to get into it. And for that, I gave it 4.5 stars. But once I did, I'm so glad that I gave it a chance and I didn't drop it because I went over my limit. But it wasn't like so much like it was dragging and like, oh my gosh, this is painful. I don't want to keep going. I don't want to do this. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was more of like there was just a slow develop of descriptive language, really painting the scenery for you, which, yeah, that's me too. And, just like, it's like was painting a masterpiece for you and like just explaining every stroke. But it had you hook enough with all these little elements that you're like, all right, I'll keep going and see what you got. And then once it got to that point that you were hooked, then you were done. That's it. All right, so Where the Crawdad Sings. All right, so if you have never heard about it, if you haven't, I don't know, maybe you haven't. This girl grows up basically on her own, abandoned like by everybody, and grows up in like the swampy area of North Carolina, or like this make-believe place. And lo and behold, she stands being accused of a murder at some point. Yeah. There was a lot in this story that just like, I was just really involved in it. Like, I was just like, you were like trying to talk to her through the pages, but she's not listening. And it was just beautifully done. It was beautifully done. Now, there is some little controversy there with the author. I do not suggest looking up the article. Now, it's said to be like, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stories there. Don't look it up until you read it because there's going to be some major spoilers in there. So there's some stuff, I don't know. But if you have been avoiding it for as long as Kelly and I have, go ahead and pick it up. It's worth it. It's worth it. Next read, right here, Malibu Rising. Now, this has been everywhere. Everybody's reading Malibu Rising. I don't know, it's just a summer read. Everybody wants to read it. It's Malibu. I normally do not read overly hyped books. I just don't. I don't know, it's my rebellious nature. You say I have to read it and I say, no, I do not. But I don't know. I was just feeling in the mood for it, of something lighter, because I went from a terminal patient to school shooting to World War II. Like, I needed something lighter, and I thought Malibu Rising was gonna give me that. It was not that light. All right, so on the surface, you may think, you read the synopsis and it's 4 siblings that are throwing this end of the year annual party that they know, and it's like freaking out of this world craziness. Stuff happens. They have a famous dad, and you think this is just gonna be like Laguna Beach. Did you watch Laguna Beach? The Hills? Let me know. You'd think it's gonna be one of those. So I thought it was just gonna be like, some reality show junk that I was just gonna digest, and I needed some junk food in the middle of all my heavy read. It was not that. It dealt with some serious stuff. Oh gosh. So there was some family drama saga going on here. And you also have dual timelines going on. So you're going back into the 1950s with the parents, June and Mick. And then you're going with the siblings, Nina and, gosh, what are their other names? I don't know. I read like 12 books at a time, so I forget names. You have them in the 80s throwing this party and meeting up to that time. You're actually like counting down the time to these things. Holy bananas. You're going back I did not know. Okay, so if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, I've not always. I started sharing more of what I'm currently reading instead of making you guys wait like for me to release. This is what I read. This is what I think. Here's my book review. And I just thought maybe that's just a little bit more fun and interactive. And then just sharing my thoughts like in the middle of it. And I share some of that in my highlights, you know, and then my ultimate like rating, but not like a full summary or review until I post it on my page or do a YouTube. So you can see a highlight. It's just called reading. And then the other one, books, I like save some of my big highlights reviews. But anyways, there was a point that I shared. I don't know if I can finish this because I was so mad. You know, have you ever read a title that you get to the point that you're so mad at the character that you don't know because you can't physically smack them and like shake them and tell them, what are you doing? If you can continue. So I didn't know if I can continue. And then, I don't know, I was just in a certain mood that I was just like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. And I'm glad I did. All right, so this was a 4-star read for me. My really picky self may have given it a 3 1/4, but I'll give it a 4-star read. And the only reason was because the ending. The ending was what, like, was great. But then it kind of dragged a little bit longer than it needed to. But then it didn't. I don't know. It just kind of lost some magic for me in the last couple chapters. And then I chopped it off a point. Because I'm cruel. I don't know. But I was so mad. Okay, so I was mad. It deals with a lot of heavy issues of, you know, dominance and just like, you know, deadbeats, dads, alcoholism, and all kinds of stuff. A lot of triggering topics too. And but it's not like direct, like, oh, this is this. It's like you see it evolve and develop, and you're dead smack in the middle of it, and nobody talks about it. Like the characters are not talking about like, oh, my mom is an alcoholic. They're not talking about it. It's just like you're seeing the signs and the buildup of it. So by the time they talk about it, it's like there's been this character development that is just beautiful work, man. Beautiful work. Okay, so when I got over my anger with June, I realized that the reason I was continuing to read is because author, and that is Taylor Jenkins Reads. I'm going to read some of her other titles. Yes, I know. Everybody's going to tell me, you need to read this one. Okay, I know. It's on hold. I use my library. The reason I kept going is because if I was this mad, if I was this frustrated with someone, if I felt this strongly, she has accomplished one thing. And by she, I mean the author, to make me feel. To grab me, put me dead smack in the story, and make me feel what the other characters are feeling or experiencing. And that to me is great writing, my friends. That's great writing. So I may have been really pissed off and had a roller coaster of emotions, and at some point been like, June, I can't take it. What you doing? And then Mick, dude, that's another story. So let's talk about Malibu Rising, if you know what I mean. Tried to avoid some spoilers, but let me know what you think. That was a riot. I enjoyed that. DNS, I did not finish because you sucked a little. This is by Alice Hoffman. This is a funny story, not the book. My story's funny. The Book of Magic. So I'm reading this, right? And I'm like, okay, I like this. I really do. And Alice Hoffman has a lot of great titles. And I'm like, okay, this is really, really cool. But I'm so confused. Like the whole time I'm reading this and like I'm halfway through it, I'm feeling like I'm missing a big chunk of the story. Like there was some inner secret that I was not let in on. And the person that I stalk, one of them at least, Annalie Cook again, she shared another title by Alice Hoffman. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a title that I was like, you know, I'm like, oh, I want to read this. So I looked it up, and then I noticed the other titles by Alice Hoffman, and I realized that this is book 3. It's book 3. So the whole time while I was confused, is because this is the third book. Damn, how did I do that? I don't know. So I stopped reading it, not because I did not like it. It's because I'm missing parts of the story. And this is, my friends, why you been confused. Like, ¿qué te pasa, mija? You're supposed to pay attention and know that. All right. Another book I did not finish really quickly. I have been trying so hard because I love this author. I love a lot of his other work. Roxy by Neil Schusterman. Oh. All right. So this was like co-authored with his son. I really wanted to like this. And maybe I will. Like maybe I can make it through it and I can make it past the first 3 chapters. I am going to be completely transparent. I have only read like the first 3 or 4 chapters. This was a pick that I just was like strolling the bookstore. I'm not the bookstore, the library. And I saw the cover and I was like, this looks pretty cool. I want to read it. All right. And that was based on that. So basically these little figures here, each like opiates, drugs and stuff like that are like gods and they like control the people and stuff. But the way that the characters are written is like a very immature tone, which I get it because they're like young on drugs and all that stuff. But I just can't handle it. It's like almost as painful as listening to a Valley Girl. I'm sorry, Valley Girls. I'm sorry. I just can't handle it. Maybe it's a me thing. If you've finished it and you think that I should give it another 5th chance, let me know. I just can't do it for my friends. And I love him. I really do. I want to read it. I just can't do it. It's done. Yes, I'm throwing things behind me. All right. The other book that I dropped this month was called The Sudden Appearance of Hope by Nour. I don't know. I don't even remember why I didn't, like, I was trying to get into it, but the character was so, lifeless. I don't know. Like, I couldn't connect with her. I couldn't connect. It was just a weird tone. And maybe it's a great book. I don't know. I just can't do it. The Sudden Appearance of Hope. Maybe one day I'll finish it. Another one that I didn't finish, and it was not because, and this has really great reviews, so it's probably a great read, was I think I just have to be in the right mood. I'm a mood reader. So if I'm not in the mood, just like if this month or last month, I was definitely not in the mood for any nonfiction, like, bye. I definitely have to be in mood for a certain type of title. So Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson was something I really wanted to read, but then I started and I just couldn't really get to it. I, of course, have a few others that I dropped, which I can't remember what they are. I do have like several titles on my plate that I'm currently rotating through. And if you're interested in that, come chat with me over on Instagram. I share a lot. I'm just going like, there's Instagram. And I share intimately what I'm reading, and then you pretty much can get an idea if I'm going to finish it or not right there. But this is one of my favorite things to do, is just talk about books. So let me know what has been your standout read for June, something you recommend that I pick up, because I am never going to say, oh, that's too much. I'm going to probably add even more titles than what I'm currently juggling. And I do have some academic reads that I am currently trying to get through as well, and some that I did last month as well, but that's another thing. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's gonna be music playing, right? So I don't look like a crazy person. There we go. All right. Captions down below. You'll find everything you need. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.